Have you ever woken up at 3 a.m. and realized the life you thought was yours was someone else's invention? I jolted upright before I even knew what was happening. The bedroom was cloaked in hush, every soft creak and distant hum amplified in the dark. My hand trembled as I reached for the lamp switch, the glow revealing him curled beside me, eyes closed, breathing steady. I took a shaky breath. "Honey," I whispered, voice barely a thread. "Are you awake?" He muttered something soft and turned away, as if hoping I'd vanish with the night. "You're being crazy," he mumbled before drifting back to sleep. Crazy. The word struck me like a fist, because for weeks I'd felt a shift, his sudden need for secrecy, the way he guarded his phone, the hushed phone calls disappearing the moment I entered the room. I glanced at the clock, 3:02 a.m. Something in my chest tightened. Not for the first time, I wondered if I was losing my mind. I slid from the bed, careful not to disturb him, and crossed to his nightstand. The lamp soft glow outlined his phone face down. My heart hammered. "He always flipped it over," said he. "Hated the glow in the dark." I turned it. The lock screen showed a notification, a preview of a message with her name in bold. My breath caught. He stirred behind me. "Drop it," he whispered, voice low with warning. I didn't move. His phone unlocked at my touch. "Our devices synced by some glitch," he'd said. Tonight that glitch was my only ally. I tapped messages and froze. "Can't wait to see you tomorrow night," face blowing a kiss. Tomorrow night, as in right this second. I scrolled up, stomach twisting. Late night coffees. They'd never shared with me. Inside jokes I'd never heard. Plans for weekend trips he'd never mentioned. Betrayal buried in pixels. He stood, eyes wild. "Give it back," he snarled. "Why?" I asked, voice tremulous but fierce. "So you can delete your lies." His jaw tightened. He reached for the phone, but I held it high. "Explain," I demanded. "Right now." He hesitated, then slumped. "I didn't mean for it to happen," he said, voice cracking. "It just did." I closed the app and opened photos. Snapshots of 2 cups of coffee, a selfie of him and her face cropped out, ticket stubs, receipts from restaurants she loved. Each image felt like a shard of ice in my chest. Tears stung my eyes. "How long?" I whispered. He swallowed. 3 months. 3 months. 3 months of stolen moments while I lay beside him, dreaming of a future we no longer shared. I felt a fierce ache, equal parts rage and grief. I gathered screenshots into an album. My fingers shook as I forwarded the entire thread to my email, proof I couldn't unsee. He sank to the edge of the bed, head in his hands. "Please," he said. "You're tearing us apart." I pressed a hand to my chest, where my heart felt raw. "You already did," I said softly. I spent the rest of that night in the living room, curled in a blanket, listening to my own ragged breathing. The first hint of dawn painted the sky pale pink. I called my sister before her coffee kicked in. I told her everything. Every hidden text, every secret photo, every moment I'd convinced myself I was imagining it all. By mid-morning, I had packed a suitcase and driven to her house. She greeted me at the door, with open arms and promises of pancakes and understanding. For the first time in days, I felt a flicker of safety. Over breakfast, I learned betrayal isn't a single act, it's a cascade. Each lie eroded trust a little, more until the foundation collapsed. I journaled obsessively, 1 page for what happened, 1 for how I felt, 1 for what I wanted next. My therapist later called this mapping the wound. transforming scattered pain into something I could see, touch, and eventually heal. I learned that shock can dull pain initially, but it never lasts. Anger rushed in next, loud, feral, unstoppable. I burned through tissues and journal pages, scribbling angry letters to him I never sent. How could you? I wrote. How could you lie next to me? Friends rallied around me. Some offered wisdom, don't stay for the apologies. Others dragged me out dancing. Each laugh felt like a small rebellion against my own heartbreak. An email popped up, his message. He'd sent detailed apologies, admitted the affair started as a friendship, then grew into something he couldn't resist. He promised he'd ended it, blocked her, and enrolled in counseling. I want to be the man you fell in love with, he wrote. I stared at those words, knowing that promises are fragile. I drafted my response carefully. I need space to decide if I can ever trust you again. Then I hesitated and deleted it. Instead, I wrote, I'm proud of the work you say you're doing. I'm doing my own. Let's talk after I find myself again. I mailed that letter to him. Paper, pen, stamp, because some things deserve more weight than a text or email. Weeks blurred into therapy sessions and solitary walks beneath jacaranda trees. I rediscovered parts of myself I'd forgotten, the photographer who chased sunsets, the writer who devoured novels under kitchen lights, the dreamer who wanted more than a perfect marriage. One afternoon, I found his letter waiting at my sister's door. He described his own grief, his regret, his commitment to change. At the bottom he wrote, I'm proud of you. Tears welled. That simple line, recognition of my courage, felt like a healing balm. I typed a reply, thank you. I'm proud of me, too. Let's talk soon. And I sent it. When we finally met, at a quiet cafe we'd once loved, it felt eerie and electric. I settled into the booth, heart pounding. He slid into the seat opposite, eyes hopeful. I'm here, he said. I nodded. I am, too. We spoke honestly for the first time in months. No illusions, no white lies, just truth. I told him how his secrets shattered me, how his apologies couldn't glue the pieces back together. Overnight, he listened, really listened, and apologized again, not for getting caught, but for hurting me. We left the cafe and strolled through the park where we'd first kissed. The jacarandas rained, petals like confetti. He reached for my hand. I let him, but lightly, testing the waters. He squeezed gently, and I realized that trust, once fractured, can be rebuilt, but it takes time, patience, and two willing hearts. That night, I returned to our home alone. I unlocked the front door, swept inside, and felt the weight of our past and the fragile promise of our future entwined in the air. I turned on the lamp, walked into the bedroom, and sat on the edge of the bed. I took a deep breath. I woke you at 3 a.m. because I heard your secrets, I whispered to the empty room. But I'm back because I believe in second chances. I placed my phone on the nightstand, face down, and lay back. Sleep didn't come immediately, but for the first time in weeks, I felt something like peace. I never imagined how loud silence could be. When I closed that bedroom door behind me, the emptiness echoed in my chest like a drum. I carried nothing but a suitcase and the weight of every unanswered question. My sister met me in the hallway with her arms open wide. Come here, she said, and I let myself collapse against her. Her shoulder was warm and steady, the kind of anchor I hadn't known I needed. I felt tears spill over, hot and jagged, but somehow cleansing. We settled into her spare room, lavender walls, soft carpet, sunlight filtering through sheer Curtains. She made us coffee so strong it was practically espresso in a mug. We sipped in companionable silence until I found the words. "I don't know who he was anymore," I whispered. She reached out, brushing my hair back. "He was scared," she said gently. "But you're the one who's brave." That morning, my phone buzzed with supportive texts, friends offering dinners, therapy, recommendations, and reminders that I was not alone. I responded with tiny hearts, each tap a small rebellion against despair. Later, I booked a session with a counselor specializing in betrayal trauma. I filled out intake forms, scribbled down dates, times, and the words 3 a.m. a dozen times. When I arrived, I was a bundle of nerves, palms clammy, voice tight. She listened as I told her our story, the routine. Nights, the sudden phone glow, the messages that shattered everything. She nodded and said, "Your instincts saved you." It felt strange to hear validation instead of doubt. In our culture, women who question are too often labeled hysterical, clingy, insecure. But here, in this softly lit office, I learned that gut instincts are early warning systems, not weaknesses. In the days that followed, I sank into healing rituals. Early mornings became my sanctuary. I rose with the sun, lacing up sneakers and running along river trails where eucalyptus scented. The air, each step pounded out the tension, my lungs learning rhythm again. Afternoons were for journaling. I wrote letters to him I would never send. "Thank you for revealing your disloyalty," I penned one day. "You taught me how strong I can be." On another page, "I forgive myself for doubting my own worth." Each entry felt like a stitch, mending the tear. In my heart, evenings were for connection. We ordered pizza with friends on my balcony, laughing over shared stories of ridiculous Tinder dates and office gossip. I rediscovered the woman I was. Before wife became my main identity, a friend, a sister, a dreamer. During one therapy session, my counselor introduced me to the concept of post-traumatic growth. She explained that some people emerge from pain with unexpected strengths, empathy, self-awareness, resilience. I felt hopeful. Maybe this betrayal wouldn't just break me, it could rebuild me. One afternoon, I sat at my sister's kitchen table with my laptop, drafting an email to my husband. I didn't expect reconciliation yet. I needed closure. I wrote, "I've been reflecting on everything. I felt grief, anger, shame, and finally clarity. I'm proud of the woman I'm becoming. I need to know if you've truly changed. Please tell me, not in a letter, but in person, what you've learned. Then I'll decide what comes next." I hesitated over proud of the woman I'm becoming. That was new territory for me, celebrating my own evolution. I hit send just before sunset, watching the little read receipt pop up. That night, sleep came easier than it had in weeks. My sister's stray cat curled at my feet, purring softly as if offering companionship when human voices failed. I realized healing isn't a solo act. It's woven through every kindness we accept. A week later, he replied. His message was humble, peppered with remorse and tangible proof of change, confirmation of therapy appointments, notes about the book he was reading on honest communication, an apology woven through every line. "I want to rebuild your trust," he wrote, "if you're willing to let me try." I closed my eyes, letting his words settle in my chest like a slow-blooming flower. I felt cautious, hope, delicate but insistent. The next day, I met with my counselor again. I read his message aloud. She smiled and said, "This is progress. Remember, change is proven through consistency." She encouraged me to set boundaries, a weekly check-in call, transparency around a schedule, and no secret devices. Armed with this plan, I called him. His voice was tentative but determined. We agreed on a coffee date, not at our old cafe, but at a neutral spot downtown. It felt like the first step on a tightrope, precarious but thrilling. On the morning of our meeting, I woke early and dressed with care, jeans and a blouse that made me feel confident. I looked in the mirror and reminded myself, I choose this moment by moment. As I walked to the cafe, memories flickered. Our first date, our wedding vows, the lazy Sunday, mornings we used to share. Each was a thread in the tapestry of us. And now I was weaving a new design, one that included honesty as its foundation. He arrived minutes later, hands in his pockets, eyes genuine. We greeted each other with a nod, no embrace, not yet. Inside, I sat opposite him, heart steady. The barista brought coffee, and we sipped in silence for a few beats, letting the aromas ground us. He cleared his throat. Thank you for agreeing to meet. I nodded. Thank you for showing up. We spoke honestly about my pain, his remorse, and the vision he had for our future. When I asked him what he'd learned in therapy, his voice wavered as he said, I learned that secrets are poison in a relationship. I learned that I need to communicate, even if it's uncomfortable. I felt tears sting, but this time they were tears of cautious relief. I reached for his hand, testing the waters. He didn't pull away. We spent the next hour rebuilding in small ways, reopening credit card statements together, setting joint passwords, discussing weekly check-ins. Each action felt like a brick in a new foundation. When we parted, he walked me to my car. I hugged him briefly, longer than a nod, shorter than a full embrace. Let's keep going, I said softly. He smiled, a mixture of gratitude and hope. Always. As I drove home, the jacaranda petals danced on the pavement, and I realized that trust isn't a single moment. It's a series of choices. I looked at the passenger seat and remembered how I'd once fled from this car at dawn. Now, I was driving toward something uncertain but possible. I parked at my sister's house, slid inside, and collapsed on the sofa. My phone buzzed with his text, "Thank you for today." I typed back, "Thank you for trying." That night, sleep came wrapped in promise rather than dread. I dreamed of open windows, clear skies, and conversations without shadows. Betrayal had woken me at 3 a.m. Healing would teach me to wake up to my own power. And as I drifted into rest, I knew the journey wasn't over, but I was no longer standing at the edge of a cliff. I was walking a bridge, one step at a time, toward a future defined not by his secrets, but by my strength. I never imagined that rebuilding trust could feel like learning a new language, awkward at first, full of mispronunciations and fumbling hands, but with each practice it became more natural. That Sunday morning, sunlight spilled through the living room window as I practiced my French pronunciations, JET face confiance, a meditation on I trust you. My sister's daughter, my niece, perched beside me on the couch, giggling as I butchered the words. "Again, Auntie," she urged. I laughed, the sound lighter than it had been in months. My phone buzzed, his weekly check-in text. "Good morning. Ready for our call?" I typed back, "Always." Even this simple ritual felt revolutionary. Two people across the world connected by honesty instead of secrets. Later that afternoon, I sat at my desk, drafting an article for the women's magazine I wrote for. The editor had asked for something raw and real on overcoming betrayal. I tapped out the Opening line. I woke him at 3 a.m., and I woke myself into a new life. It felt fitting. As I wrote about gut instincts and the science of trauma healing, I realized my story had value beyond my own catharsis. My words could be lifelines for someone else lost in the dark. My phone rang. It was him. I moved to the balcony where the jacarandas swayed overhead. He greeted me with quiet warmth. I booked us a counseling session together, he said. If you're comfortable. I closed my eyes. This was progress. Shared vulnerability instead of hidden agendas. I'd like that, I replied. Thank you for asking. We scheduled it for Friday evening. That week unfolded in small triumphs. I discovered a yoga class that focused on trauma. Release, and each stretch felt like letting go of jagged edges inside me. I reconnected with an old mentor who reminded me of my dreams, photographing street art and hosting workshops. I signed up for a portrait photography course, my camera once more a tool of creation, not observation. Friday arrived. We sat side by side in the counselor's softly lit room, a single box of tissues on the coffee table between us. Our counselor guided us through exercises and active listening. He learned to reflect back what I said before responding. I practiced stating my needs without blame. At one point, she asked him to share something he'd changed since the affair. His voice shook as he admitted, I've stopped hiding phone notifications. I share them with you instead. He glanced at me, earnest. I felt tears sting, but gratitude first, proof that his apologies weren't empty. After the session, we walked home under the jacarandas. Petals drifted down like confetti, reminding me of new beginnings. He reached for my hand. I hesitated, then intertwined my fingers with his. It felt familiar, yet completely reborn. That night, I dreamed of the past, of the moment I discovered his secrets, of the fear and rage. But instead of waking in panic, I let the dream play out, held his gaze in the dream and forgave him there, in the safe space of my own mind. I woke with dawn and realized forgiveness had begun long before I uttered the word. Over the next month, we maintained our weekly sessions and daily check-ins. He sent me random photos of his phone notifications, just test messages, harmless reminders of our routine. I learned to breathe through the impulse to panic. Trust wasn't blind, it was vigilant. Compassion. One evening, I invited friends over for pasta and prosecco. Laughter filled my apartment as we toasted resilience and new chapters. My sister clinked glasses with me, eyes shining. You did it, she said. You reclaimed your story. I nodded, heart full. We did it. I corrected her, because healing isn't solo. It's interwoven with those who stand by us. That night, he surprised me with a printed photo album, a project he'd secretly worked on. Each page chronicled our journey, pictures from our early days, tickets from trips we took together, candid snaps of our shared smiles, and mixed in the fragile moments of our healing. A snapshot of my tears in the living room, the two of us at therapy, me running along the river trail, him offering me his hand at the cafe. On the final page, he included our wedding photo, with a note, For every tomorrow I promise to be worthy of your trust. I cried then, but soft tears of gratitude. This album wasn't just memory, it was a pact. I hugged him, resting my head on his shoulder. Thank you, I whispered, for believing in us enough to fight. He held me, voice muffled against my hair. Thank you for giving me a second chance, he said. In that embrace, I realized the final truth. Love that endures betrayal isn't naive, it's courageous. It requires setting boundaries, demanding honesty, and still choosing to stay. It means loving someone not because they're perfect, but because they're willing to become better. Months later, I published my article, my 3 a.m. story. Messages poured in from women who'd felt invisible in their own marriages, who'd been told they were crazy or insecure. They thanked me for giving words to their own secret fears. In sharing my darkest hour, I offered them a beacon, and in doing so, I solidified my own newfound strength. One quiet morning, I sat on our balcony with coffee, jacaranda petals drifting around me. He joined me with his own mug. We clinked cups and sipped. No secrets glowed on our screens, only messages of love. I smiled at him, heart steady. "Do you remember that night?" he asked gently. I looked at my phone clock, 3:01 a.m. I laughed softly. How could I forget? He reached across and squeezed my hand. "I promise to always wake up for you," he said. I leaned into him, wrapped in the cool dawn air, and whispered, "And I promise to always trust my heart, because it led me home."